Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I wanted to welcome you all this afternoon. My name is Abaseh Mirvali, and I have the pleasure of moderating this panel today. And we thank you on a day that it is 85 degrees in Basel that you would join us. So thank you so much. Today I have with me next to me Fusun Eczacibasi, who is first and foremost a friend, and then a patron, and a supporter of the arts and culture in general in Turkey and internationally. And I have my colleague, Defne, director of Witte in Rotterdam. And we're going to have a conversation, a very, very relaxed and conversation amongst us that will include you in towards the end. The thoughts that we express are our thoughts. We're not representing any other institutions or the community at large in Turkey, whether they be in Turkey or as a diaspora elsewhere. But they're based on our experiences with the projects that we've been privileged enough to lead inside and outside Turkey that might relate to that experience. So I just wanted to start with a quote that I remember when Orhan Pamuk won the Nobel 2008. He said, later on I read something that he said, the measure of a museum's success should not be its ability to represent a state, nation, or company, or a particular history. It should be its capacity to reveal the humanity of individuals. So I hope that in some small measurement today we reveal the humanity of a nation of individuals that have a very strong, proud history and what we're doing in the modern context with it as far as contemporary art production and support goes. So we're going to start talking about this emerging contemporary art scene in Istanbul, and the word emerging has really mutated and taken on new meanings, but we're going to discuss that. But we want to speak in particular within the framework of some new organizations that have been created, primarily Saha, which is an organization that Fusun has been very instrumental in bringing onto the scene, and other sister organizations such as Arte, Borusan, Independent Spaces, the museums such as Istanbul Modern, and many other wonderful museums that there are, the very successful Istanbul Biennial, and whether it's outside the country, having our colleagues at Witte, Performa, and many other institutions internationally. We want to discuss, really, first of all, what is different about Turkey, and that possibly gives it a different, or rather complementary perspective on contemporary art and its production and promotion. So why are we here today?
What is different about Turkey? I'm not sure about the answer, but if one of the definitions of art is interaction and a dialogue between cultures, Turkey has a unique position because of many different layers of cultures, and of course each country has their own realities about regional, historical, and cultural backgrounds. But Turkey, being the successor of Ottoman Empire, and which has, in a way, cut its ties with its past for a long period of time after the new Turkish Republic. Now, many of the histories of the past are being relived in the recent years, which were swept under the carpet for many years. And so the artist has many new questions to be asked, in a way, these questions are new to the people, other cultures. And it became visible probably after 2000 onwards. And also because of all these, I guess it's a curiosity towards the unknown, which is Turkey, for the Western world.
So what would be discovery for you and maybe curiosity for the outside world? Would you agree?
Well, I pick up maybe on the Ottoman element, which I find fascinating because it's a historical take maybe to look at the European avant-garde, let's say the birthplace of the futurism. That was the Ottoman soils, right? Marinetti was born in Alexandria. in Egypt. Valentin Saint-Point, one of the first futurist poets, she was spending time in Syria. Marinetti then spent time in Adrianopolis, which is the border of Turkey and Greece. That's where he really got sort of into the sounds of the war, to the point that he wanted to embrace it in his typography, in his poems and everything. So for me, also it's kind of, we have to look a little bit differently also at the underpinnings of the Western history and what's the filtering role of potential land of Turkey. That's one aspect. And the other aspect, I would say, why Turkey now is also, historically, you can look at the roots of Western colonialism and, 12th century Turco-Mongolian sort of advances into the European continent, but also the last 4 decades, there was actually quite a Turkish presence in Europe as well. So I think Europe is now also coming to the realization in this crisis time, what is Turkey's role in terms of redefining its own potentiality for a new Europe, potentially. I'm speculating, but I think that would be my answer.
So you think that this awareness, whether it be on the political, social, economic, has also kind of moved across to the world of contemporary or art production, and therefore created this sense of curiosity?
I believe so.
I mean, I think it is a combined effect. You also look at China, right? Like, why not Korea but China? Because China is the big economic power, and Korea has probably amazing artists, as many and maybe more than Chinese artists, but it's not quite the economic superpower. And Turkey is actually became a regional power. And
one of the economic successes worldwide.
As well. I think the most recent resurfacing interest in the Turkish contemporary art scene, in a way, is a result of that. However, that said, the history of the Turkish contemporary art is, of course, we can look at the last 30 years. It's from 1980s onwards, we can really look at the history together today, if you want. Yeah.
And I think we should do a little bit of that. And when you speak, you talk about Europe and the curiosity because of the context, geographic context. But what do you feel that's different from the United States that maybe doesn't, geographically is not so close? Do you feel it different? Do you feel the same curiosity or a desire by institutions in the United States to work with Turkish artists or try to understand the scene?
I think it's more in Europe other than United States, because as Defne said, in Europe there was a population, there was a Turkish population, but in States there is not that much curiosity. It's just awakening now. I think European interest is much more than United States.
Because if we look at the history of the Turkish contemporary art, but also for disclosure, I haven't really, even though I'm from Istanbul and I'm very connected to Istanbul, I didn't really work in Istanbul. There are many more people who actually work in the audience as well, who work in Istanbul. But my impression is, I think 1980s, after the military coup, there is sort of this beginning of the conceptual anti-militaristic contemporary art production, and then in 90s we really see the validation taking place via European institutions. So a lot of the great contemporary artworks are actually in European collections, I would say mostly in Germany and Austria, and the validation really happened via Europe before being rediscovered again in Istanbul. So in that sense, Europe's role is far more important than America's role in terms of the acknowledgement of the scene, because in the US there's still quotas for what Middle East art could be. So if I want to work with Rabih Mroueh, some of you may know, the comment I would get from a very important New York art critic, oh, this is another Walid Raad. So the quota for Middle East art is very limited, and I think initiatives like Saha can actually help it even expand or bring it more visibility, not only curators, but
What are some of the precursor projects that, in a way, have led the path to when we talk a little further to institutions like Saha? What would you say this kind of journey?
I mean, the Biennial, of course, 1987. It's the birthplace. Beral Madra organizing an international exhibition of contemporary art. Then the second edition coming with Vasıf Kortun. The role of René Bloch, the curator, who actually brought more of contemporary medium, more media arts into the scene, as well as looking into the region, into the Balkans, and contextualizing Turkey within the region. Then Rosa Martinez. So I think every edition, in a way, brought its own vision, cultural leadership, and approach to the region. So I would definitely say the Biennial was an instigator, apart from the artists' own initiatives and their own collective actions. So in that sense, I would really give priority to the Ankara scene, which never gets the light. Everybody thinks it's Istanbul, but actually 90s, some of the collective correspondences, you were there, Abaseh, so it was taking place in Ankara. Then the Diyarbakir scene, which is heavily more Kurdish, and the interest of German institutions and curators in the Kurdish area that made a difference. And then I would say 2000 onwards, it's more the EU dynamics picking up.
You are very closely supportive of the biennial process, and how would you say, how have you seen it evolve in your experience?
I think Istanbul Biennial is different and had an immense effect because of the foundation which is organizing the biennial. So Istanbul Biennial is not something just injected to the city, but the foundation's interdisciplinary nature, which started first with the music festival, and then film festival, theater festival, jazz festival, now biennial, and also the design biennial. The interdisciplinary nature of the foundation helped a lot, and so each field nurtured each other. It made a big difference. It's not only creating, oh, this is very fashionable, create a biennial in the city. It was not created through a fashion. It was created from a real need, and it was, at the beginning, it was small steps, and then the steps get gradually and naturally bigger. And, and there was really a coherent dedication. So I assume this might be the difference.
I think I would agree with you all, because I think it's strong to say fashion, but we are in a region where a lot of things seem to come out of a place of fashion, and it is important to people are so quick to wanting to create new things, new fairs, new biennials, and it is important
one more fair.
So it's important to look at that historical aspect of it, and that the different disciplines kind of grew up together. I remember actually when I was there in the 90s, you heard more about the jazz and the film than you really discussed with the art, and the group in Ankara was very interdisciplinary. You had writers and thinkers and musicians. It wasn't actually, it was philosophers, the least of the group. And it was, being in Ankara, being the capital of the country, it was also very political. So the discussion was much more centered in that direction. My recollection with what was beginning of my fascination with Turkey. But I do think that is different. What about people like Dan Cameron? What about some of those? Are there any particular instances that you would recall that you think that instance made a difference in how people kind of perceived?
I think every curator brought their own audience, their own vision, their own way of approaching the city of Istanbul. Some used historic sites, some used historical abundant buildings, and they all brought their own artistic vision and cultural leadership to the city. So in the case of Dan Cameron, maybe all of a sudden, back to your question, the US scene really woke up to what's happening in Istanbul. And then when Vasef Kortun and Charles Esch situated the biennial back into Istanbul and the region, that lineage was followed by VHV, the curatorial collective from Croatia, in a more political dimension than maybe Kortun and Esche has done. And then with Jens Hoffman and Adriano, I think they completely took a different direction, and they really focused on the art of exhibition making, as well as doing more of a comparative reading between the region, Middle East, and Latin America. So every director, I think, brought their own vision of what the Istanbul Biennial could be. So it's never this like one lineage or tradition. I think every other edition we have a bit of a rupture.
But I think after René Bloch, isn't it? After René Bloch's biennial, I think the interest started growing up.
Right.
So it was a turning point, maybe.
Sure.
And what about the critique? Do you feel that there is proper critique about when the shows are done, when the way that the issues are tackled? Is there a vibrant community of writers that from inside the country make their thoughts known?
It's even more than critic. The fights are going on after each biennial, of course.
Which is healthy.
Yeah.
Because there are countries where there's actually no critique, and that's that doesn't seem to be the case in Turkey. There seems to be a healthy amount of self-reflection.
I mean, it is a small scene, so it's not like it's a big scene. I mean, we shouldn't really pretend it's like this huge scene. It's always, our art historical movements sometimes are in the hands of 3 people, 5 people, 20 people. In that sense, you know, Istanbul is maybe bigger than that. But it is a small scene, and it's also the birthplace of Byzantium. So there is also a lot of, the art world has its dynamics, you know. I mean, there's love and hate and passion and admiration. You have all those high contrasts, highlights of emotions constantly expressed, whether it is through the biennial matrix or it's through other exhibition-making exercises. There's always a lot of opinion in Istanbul, for sure.
I knew Defne was going to bring up the birthplace of Byzantium. It took her 19 minutes, so it's good.
Yeah.
So, and what about some of the support organizations that have existed that would have supported, you know, the biennial? I mean, obviously there was a visionary leader. The fact that there is a culture, that there was a background of music, film, and other mediums to be able to, you know, actually it's easier because people relate to music, literature, and film in some ways because it was part of the culture so much longer. So that existing, were there other organizations, whether they were institutional or private, that led to that support?
First of all, I want to add something to what I said before, because I have to say the younger scene, my contemporaries, they are very supportive of each other. So what I've said is maybe in reference to the older generations, but sort of my contemporaries, there's a lot of solidarity and support that's taking place right now.
You feel like that is a different?
Yeah, I definitely see it, and there's a lot of camaraderie. But back to your question, having worked abroad mostly and working at times also with Turkish artists, I didn't see much support at all from the Ministry of Culture. The Ministry of Culture either supports film productions or more like traditional approaches to what constitutes art. I've noticed in New York there is a Koç-tinted self-organized initiative called Moon and Stars. They were primarily supporting every other year, you know, when I work with a Turkish artist, they would come on board and help with the flight or a bit of with the production or the promotion. But in Istanbul, it's mostly companies and maybe mostly banks that support institutional presence more than individual artist productions. So it is important to also see, I think more and more we're seeing also interest in supporting directly the artists. I think the artist productions were either supported by galleries or by guest invitations from abroad. And now I think that's changing a bit, yeah?
Is that what kind of led to the creation of Saha?
Yeah, creation of Saha started, as Defne says, there's really a very minimum government support to arts.
Right.
So Saha is a non-profit organization. Maybe it's the first philanthropic organization for supporting art in Turkey, just without any return. And it is founded by 9 people equally sharing the same, you know, vision. It's not only me, 9 people. We started this from scratch. And its target is to contribute the presence of Turkish contemporary art in the international art platforms. That's the target. So how we do that, we support artists, curators, art critics, and who are invited to some international organizations and whose projects needs monetary funds. So our primary role is to support the designated art projects, not the artists. That's maybe a major difference. Right. I should underline. And so by doing so, we want to strengthen the international presence of the artists.
And how is the process? How is the process? I mean, 9 people started it, and how many people are now part of Saha?
Now we have 40 members. It hasn't been a year yet. And so it...
How does the support structure work?
The support structure works if, let's say, an artist is invited to performa, let's say, and if the project needs some funding, not the artist applies us, the institution applies us, so that they just make a project proposal, and then we see the budgets, and we usually take the production costs. Primarily because we want the artist to have the new production instead of just showing a work that has already existed. We want to open new doors. Right. So this is how it. So our general secretary makes a report on this on the project, and then it is voted in the with the board.
What are some of the examples?
It first started last year with the Istanbul Biennial. So we gave support to all the artists from Turkey. They are living all over. And we gave production support to all projects.
How many artists were there?
I believe Izyan's here. He will know it much better. More, I think it was 14. I'm
really?
Not sure with the number, but I think. And they distributed the funds among them for the production. And then, wheels started rolling. We did Performa, Manifesta, La Triennale in Paris, and lately Documenta. And also we supported a publication by Documenta. They only do,
selected
very few small numbers. So publication for an artist, a historical artist from Turkey. So this all started. We know that if those necessary funds are not raised, okay, there will be a presence of the art from Turkey, but it will be in smaller numbers.
Right.
So we just want to encourage the institutions to be more inclusive about Turkish art. Not Turkish art. Turkish art is not a good definition. Art from Turkey, let's say.
Art from Turkey.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been going to events like Documenta or the Biennial or Basel for a long time. I know both of you have as well. I definitely hear Turkish so much more. I mean, how does it feel to go to Documenta, to see the publication, to see the artists, and to, last night there was a reception and there were nearly 200 people there. I'd say 150 were Turks. I mean, it's
amazing.
It's amazing.
So Turks and the Chinese are taking over Europe. Is that what you're saying?
You ready?
You heard it here first.
But the thing is, I mean, if you look at the history all the way from Mongolia to Kreuzberg, I mean, there's a whole history. It sort of bounces back in Vienna and then ends up in Kreuzberg. Now I'm in Rotterdam, and I find it to be more Turkish than Istanbul has ever been. I mean, if I look at the agency over time, and why sometimes I think, oh my God, am I going nationalistic, looking at the whole Turkish agency? It's not. We have to understand.
Well, I asked you, and you became a little defensive, but I said, do you feel that suddenly that happens when you've been
Because
outside?
I'm abroad. No, it's not because I'm abroad. I think culturally we have to understand what happened with all the Mongolian tribes coming to Poland, and then how it triggered Western defenses, and then it's like what happened in the 70s. I mean, obviously in Europe there's a huge Turkish contingency because of the migrant workers. Now the second generation, they're going to be the third generation. So it's actually, we have to understand what happened, also for us.
Why?
I mean, back to what Fusun was saying, because it's, we are also understanding our own history. We didn't that much. The Ottoman past, we didn't really know that much because our Western world-looking secular upbringing, or in the circles where we grew up, I mean, it was completely looking towards Europe. So we didn't quite understand our relationship with China or with the East, with Iran. Neither with the Balkans. For us, it was all about the missionary presence and our perfect schools and our immediate environment. So, so now actually there is a bit of this return, like, okay, we cannot even read our history from 90 years ago. We cannot read Arabic script, it's all Latin script. So actually there's also that resurfacing interest. So I said to myself, why should it be only in the domain of the nationalists to look at the Turkish agency when I'm living in China for 6 years and I'm seeing 25 million Turkic-speaking people? I'm like, what happened here? That's where we all came from. I mean, obviously, if we look also who is Turkish, that's also, anybody can be a Turk because of the Ottoman Empire presence. I mean, I'm sure you have roots somewhere else. I have roots back in Greece or the Balkans. So it's also a bit, we have to also look what Turkishness really entails. It's never that pure ethnic thing that we all think it is,
I think I'm of Iranian heritage, and I grew up, and there was this definite distinction with Turkey, the two cultures, because the Persian Empire also great in its moment, under reconstruction now, but then the Ottoman Empire. But it is interesting that the Turks do have a much more guarded appreciation for their history and the people. I did find a nationalism that was much more respectful and beautiful in Turkey than I certainly ever did upon my return to Iran. And I see that tinted in the way that you all, as patrons, professionals in the art world, and even the artists speak when you speak. I don't know if you're aware of it, but as a person from a neighboring culture,
it's interesting you say that, because for me it's not really the Turkishness, it's more like the land upon which the Turks arrived and how it's sitting on ancient Greece and how it's sitting on the heritage of Byzantium. And I think it's important to understand also where we have arrived. So it's not like being proud only to be Turkish, but understanding what Turkey is sitting on, what kind of a fertile land it's sitting on, because it allows you to understand the world in a way, or the European dynamics.
Do you think this is being reflected in the artist's work in a very pronounced fashion? Do you think the artists are dealing very, very openly with these issues, that the self-discovery?
Self-discovery, yes. I think recently, because, as Defne says, our history was not that clear for us. We cannot read Arabic, we cannot go back after 90 years, and so most of the historical facts are just being revealed. Just every day we hear something new. And so with those new questions, the art is being produced through those new questions, of course.
When you support the art, you entertain all questions. You make no judgments. The proposals that are made to you, you don't pass a judgment on whether something is politically.
Again, the decision is not our decision. It's always the decision is, the institution's decision, which artists, what project they're choosing. But on the other hand, personally, I will be much more at ease with works which are asking questions instead of, giving the answers. So art, I believe, should be more about questions other than answers.
And anti-militarism or identity issues were really quite pronounced in the 90s in Turkish contemporary art, for sure, or contemporary art from Turkey, also including the artists from the Turkish Kurdish part of the country. So you see a lot of anti-militarist sentiments being expressed also by this incredible woman generation like Hale Tengers and so forth. Also Halil Altındere, who was in Documenta back in the day, him looking at identity issues through his art. So back to your question, definitely, we've seen that exploration. Now, is that really an issue? Some artists have more conceptual concerns. Some still question the modernism that Turkey went through. Some are looking still at gender politics and identity politics. So it's more of a wide spectrum now.
Can I ask Fusun, on a personal level, what brought you to wanting to be active in this area? What awakened in you, other than appreciation for the art? Because I know it's been a long time that you've had your own journey with your husband, or separate, who's celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday, Farouk.
Yeah. What brought me to this, it's a voyage. It's a trip. And I remember a few years back, this idea was always behind in my mind and also my colleagues' minds, the founders' minds. But a few years back, there was again a very flashy art event in town, in Istanbul, and people flew in from all over the world, and everyone was very happy going from that corner to the other. And a very dear friend of mine who is just sitting there just addressed a question to me. Fusun, everything is so nice, it's okay, but isn't it the time to put a content in it for you, the collectors? And that was a good and timely question. So I wanted to carry to my affinity to another level, other than being just, you know, a very shallow, let's say, consumer in the very blunt way. Thankfully, I had friends who had the same, you know, vision, and they had the same disturbance,
right.
And something was nagging them as well. So we discussed a lot, and we said we should carry this affinity beyond our homes, you know, not beyond our walls, the size of our walls and everything. So we should be supporting art which is not owned by us, but which has a dialogue with the larger audiences. And we wanted to support art, again, asking questions, provokes ideas. You know, it's not about us owning that art. So it all started like that, but at that time there were some projects we were hearing about, and each time some of us were also involved in Tate committees. I'm in Menaac and also International Council, and some other friends are also in Menaac, and we have seen nice models of supporting art from your region, from your area. So it all started like that, and we decided that it's a very shallow and gray area. If you're a collector, whom you are supporting is so important. You know, you could easily be questioned, why not this one, but that one, this person or the other person, or this project or the other project. So we decided that we should support, but in such a way that we are out of it. You know, we are out of the scene. So it's not like a charity organization where, you know, we have a charity and artist relationship. We wanted to keep the artists independent from us. And we never want to have a one-on-one relationship with the artists, so they don't feel that they owe anything to us. And, you know, some of the artists we never have interest in. But if those projects are accepted by important, you know, visible organizations or exhibitions, and needs funds to be realized, we should be there,
right,
being very anonymously. Right. So that's why now we have some, you know, questions in our country. We will make a meeting with all the parties to tell them again that we are not in the process of selection, because people say, oh, we didn't know that you have selected this project. But why should you know? You know, right. It's not our business. We are not we don't have any interest in promoting an artist and being in the career development of the artist. We are interested in the project other than the artist,
right,
or, you know, the process of the thinking and making, realizing it. So this is started with those 9 people, and now we are 40. And we hope we'll be much more in a very short time.
Defne, let me ask you, does this like give you, knowing that there's now an organization like Saha that can be supportive of a project, does it open some new horizons for you to be able to do projects that you maybe didn't think about before?
I mean, what I appreciate about Saha is it's intelligent patronage, right? So you actually, instead of just receiving money from the government and applying, you're actually constantly in conversation with Fusun and her peers in Saha. So it's not like this huge hierarchy that you have. It's actually much more, we're thinking together, we're collaborating together. We have autonomy in terms of our choices as curators, which doesn't really get to be in any way influence, yet you have also the full support. So in a way, it's actually a wonderful opportunity to be able to work, because even when I was working at Performa, you know, I had my quota was one person each edition in a way, because that's what the budgets allowed. Even though you want to do more, then you have to invent even more, and there are limits to how much resourceful you can be also as a curator, because if you know, if you're a curator, but you're also a producer, and you're also a fundraiser, you're also a marketer, what the jobs are a bit also, if it's more the hybrid jobs, there are only so many times you can actually do it for every single artist. And for me, it wasn't only about promoting artists from Turkey. For me, it was always about representation wherever I worked. So I looked at the whole spectrum from all around the world. So it wasn't really necessarily a focus on Turkey, but I think it definitely allows us more opportunities if we're thinking, oh, maybe we should also work with this artist, and if we see that there's support, it of course makes a difference. Yeah.
I have a lot more questions, but to be fair and be able to give the opportunity to everyone in the audience, and we do have other members of the community present, so if they feel like making a comment about anything that has been said, please feel free to do so. Claudio is helping out. Is there any questions? We all understand the Turkish.
I told all my friends not to
address
any
have
questions.
you said that? You're buying everyone a drink. You know, I have to say that, you know, for some of you that know me, I'm kind of like bipolar because I live in Latin America, but of course I'm of Iranian heritage, and Turkey for me really was the first place that I felt when I arrived in Turkey that I could be proud of being from our region, because of the way things were dealt with in Turkey. I really do see a very different way of approaching how support and production is being done, and I have to say that I'm proud. My social commentary here, that you all are going about it in a very, that the institutions are communicating with each other, not necessarily they might see eye to eye, that the gallery scene is growing and is becoming more vibrant. What about the fair? Actually, we never discussed the fair. What does the fair do? How long has the fair existed? Has it been a long time?
8, or
8.
does anyone knows? 7?
7 years.
There are 2 fairs, and there might be another fair. And it's surprising, because if you look at Istanbul, why it hasn't become that hub of fair activity, and why is it in Dubai? I mean, that also gives some answers. You know, Istanbul has all the potential, has all the right elements.
For one fair or 3 fairs?
For one really good fair.
One fair. Come on, only.
Yeah, we'll see. But also, you know, of course, it's a very promising time for the art scene, yet politically also Turkey, especially in the last few months, is also going through a really conservative streak, through which the government is even saying we have to create our conservative style art. So, or there's a little bit more of clamping on state theaters. There's this urge to redefine what is actually a neoliberal Islamic way of thinking about contemporaneity and art production. So there's also a resurfacing.
Maybe if you mention what is happening politically in Turkey, and for a time now, for many of us, but there was a big shift in the political structure.
I mean, it's obviously a pro-Islamic government that has been very pro-EU, but maybe in the last year we started seeing them a bit more, getting more conservative, and them actually also questioning what art is, and imposing, or they are willing to impose their ideas what art should be. So also the climate is rather not too stable in that sense. I mean, we have also, like you use the word schizophrenic, we also in Turkey, I think it's also the fertile land. We have multiple realities at the same time. What we're sharing is only one part of the reality.
There was a question.
Hi. While it's so amazing and necessary to be supporting artists who are already on a level where they're getting in international art exhibitions, can you tell me anything about the development or support for young artists? Like, there's not a very good art school in Istanbul right now. Can we talk about educating artists really early on and nurturing their development so they can get to the level where they're going to be getting in Documenta or Manifesto and exhibitions like this?
again, Mari,
My voice is really gone. Sorry.
No, I hear you well. Education is, of course, under our radar, but again, giving a personal support, we don't find it correct. But if an artist is accepted to an art school, again, if she needs some funds, the school could apply us. Which happened is, for instance, we recently made a 3 years agreement with ICI in New York. So we are giving support for 4 curatorial studies in 1 year. Every year, at least 4 we will support. And then they will also make a research award on our name. This is a kind of support. But on the other hand, we started some dialogue with some institutions for education, but I cannot say anything now. But that's also in our future plans, if we could grow more funds.
There are some amazing artists who teach, of course, in Istanbul, like İnce Eviner or Ahmet Öğüt. Yıldız University or Sabancı University has great teachers like Erda Aksel or Selim Birsel. But yeah, education is definitely, in Istanbul, for artists, it still can be improved. More artists who are more present globally have either done their education via Rijksacademy in the Netherlands or via London. They had a bit more presence because they set up their own distribution networks, but also artists from Diyarbakır or Istanbul or Ankara, the whole Bilkent scene. And I think we see artists coming from all kinds of university networks, but I agree with you, it can be improved, art education in Istanbul, for sure. And I think there are people working on it. Yeah, you know it.
Any other questions? Well, given that we did such an excellent job, of talking about Turkey, we can only hope that you will come to Turkey on all the many occasions that may present themselves to you. We have the next Biennial in 2013, curated by mid-September, curated by Fulya Erdemci, and we're very excited about that. But it is really a very short flight away, and amazing scene. So thank you so much for coming today, and if you have any questions for everyone, we'll be available. Thank you.